sociably, and I was sat on a bench having a cup of coffee. That is not antisocial. Well, because yes, you're provoking me. You are. You literally are. I'm sat
Are you going to give us your details or not?
No. I'm not obliged to. I'm going to put it on your hand.
What's going on?
Why are you putting your hands behind your back?
What are you doing?
I was sitting on a bench. It's not attacking
I was sitting on a bench.
What the hell are you doing to this woman?
You are breaking your own laws, your own
This is
policy.
disgusting. What are you doing? What's this poor woman doing?
I'm sitting on a bench. Why are her hands behind her back?
You've got to choose your side.
Why are her hands behind her back? Sorry. No, you're not to arrest me for having a coffin.
Holy frickin' cow. Those are individuals being arrested and hauled off to jail for simply walking on a boardwalk and sitting on a park bench. That's our reality, and of course, some people say that this is coming to the United States soon, since of course, similar measures are already instituted in Canada, where police officers are strictly enforcing a curfew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Since of course, you know, the sickness going around has an exact schedule when it works and doesn't work. Makes perfect logical sense for government. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Radowski of wearechange.org. A lot of important information to get into today, and in this video we also will have an exclusive important interview with an insider from the silver business. But before we talk about precious metals and alternatives to the US dollar, there of course is not just a larger financial storm brewing, there's also a political one, with of course the major online deplatforming of current US President Donald Trump, as well as calls for his impeachment and also his and his supporters' imprisonment. As of course Chris Christie just said that Donald Trump should be impeached, and tomorrow there will be major efforts to do that. Now, if you're interested to where I stand on this issue, of course I have always been against violence, but also against big tech censorship. When it comes to the U.S. President Donald Trump, I have criticized him during his presidency, specifically on his wasteful, reckless spending, his arrest of Julian Assange, the mistreatment of whistleblowers, his love affair with Israel and Saudi Arabia while creating one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world, Yemen right now, as well as his failure to not support the First and Second Amendment. And I could keep going on and on about the things that I disagreed with Donald Trump and what he could have done better, and automatically that doesn't make me some kind of establishment shill that is now cheering on the larger control and censorship efforts that are being pushed by duplicitous individuals that are saying that they are allegedly against violence. Meanwhile, they are warmongers. I'm sorry, but when you bomb 7 countries in your presidency, you're not going to convince me you're some kind of peacenik. Now, because I say that, does that make me a Trump supporter? No! But it is important to call out a lot of the important hypocrisies that are happening right now by many establishment figures that are overhyping, sensationalizing an event to grab more power and control for themselves. Now, because I call out this hypocrisy, it doesn't mean that I don't take the events that happened seriously, especially the many deaths that led to it, including those of Ashley Babbitt, which oddly is not being talked about, and also the police officer that died after being maced and hit over the head with a fire extinguisher. So yeah, it's crazy that I even have to explain my particular stances here, since of course they have always been consistent. And right now, one of the most blaring important issues that I see is of course this hypocrisy that absolutely deserves to be called out, since we are seeing extreme media and corporate bias towards one political side trying to get political and cultural dominance over the other. Now, when you look at the responses from one act of political violence to another, you see completely different stances by many large institutions that of course flip-flop on the issues because of their political beliefs, rather than just being against political violence, which we are here and always have been. You shouldn't be picking and choosing what violence you are against. You should just be against violence. But of course, that's not what we have with Chevron, Coca-Cola, A&E, and even institutions like McDonald's that are associating what happened at the U.S. Capitol with an attack on McDonald's. I'm sorry, but your murder burger is not that important to self-identify as the U.S. government. And if corporations aren't sensationalizing this event, they're using it to take away more civil liberties away from you, deplatforming, obfuscating, deleting, and censoring people because of their political opinions. And many in the establishment are willingly cheering this on, celebrating this uncountable huge power that, of course, is following in the footsteps of other totalitarian governments like China that routinely block political conversations that, of course, the establishment does not agree with. Just moments ago, Google banned Parler, Apple removed it from its store, so did Google, Amazon removed it from its web hosting services. This, of course, is an alternative Twitter for conservatives that was even censoring speech itself, but yet many people on the left are saying, good, build your own internet if you're not happy with this one. If you're Rosa Parks, build your own bus line, as of course they are now cheering on private corporations being able to do what they want. And if that's the case, why aren't they also cheering on for small businesses to open? You know, these are the same people that are saying small businesses need to be locked down. Again, very little virtues, very little meaning, as of course this purge is expanding, and other internet companies like Mozilla are even saying that we need more than just censorship, we need more than just deplatforming when it comes to dealing with U.S. President Donald Trump and his supporters. The Lincoln Project proudly announced that they are also constructing a database, a list of Trump officials and staff members that will track their personal life and will, quote, hold them accountable for what they were involved in. Some Democrats are trying to already pass a domestic terrorism bill that will only empower the police and surveillance state even more, as individuals like John Brennan are literally foaming at the mouth calling for redemption against Donald Trump and his supporters, which he deems, quote, necessary to eradicate any remaining malgancy. This is, by the way, the same John Brennan that is known to lying through his teeth to the American public when he was head of an American intelligence agency. Intelligence agencies that are very closely connected to, of course, big tech companies. And yeah, feel free to make any connections there. Now, of course, if it's not a big political storm that we are facing, it is definitely a financial one, since, of course, the United States, thanks to, in part, U.S. President Donald Trump, is recklessly in debt and continuing to spend record amounts of money that, of course, will lead to some kind of inflation. Food prices are already inflating in many supermarkets, and if you look at the price of the dollar and what it buys you comparatively to what it used to buy you decades ago, it is absolutely terrifying. That's why I've always been a big proponent to things like silver, and again, this is not financial advice, but this is something that many people use as a store of value that has been historically used to hedge against the US dollar. And to talk about what's going on with silver, including its latest price dip, we right now will be talking to the CEO of Silver Dollar Resources, who is available at silverdollarresources.com. The link will be available in the description below. Michael Romanik, who of course is an entrepreneur, the founding shareholder of the company Silver Dollar, who is going to give us the insider info on what's going on with silver. And before we proceed, it's important to note that this video is in part supported by Silver Dollar Resources. We are working with them for full disclosure and honesty. So for me, this is a win-win for you with the information you're getting. It's a win-win for me, and of course, also Silver Dollar Resources, which you get to hear out. Now, when it comes to the current state of the U.S. economy, I think it's very fair to say that things are very turbulent or just absolutely bananas. And that's why I'm very happy to have you here, Michael. Thank you so much for coming on. I know you are really busy. And just going straight to you, what do you make of just everything happening right now financially?
Well, let's start with just the past week with what's going on in Washington. Looks more like a movie than real life. It's pretty scary stuff, really. It just shows you how deeply divided the nation is down there.
Yeah, to say the least. Things are definitely turbulent politically, and people don't even understand the bigger kind of picture and the bigger ramifications of what's even happening financially. So we have a lot to get into. But before we get into the kind of longer trends, the bigger trends, what's happening, who are you and what's your company? What are you all about?
Oh, thanks. Our company is Silver Dollar Resources. We went public in May of this year. We're listed in Canada under the ticker SLV, and down in the States, SLVDF. We got about a 65 million Canadian market cap. Our largest shareholders are Eric Sprott, who's a well-known mining financier, and First Majestic Silver. We're closely held by an insider group of about 40% is held collectively by the insiders. We have our La Jolla project from First Majestic down in Mexico that we're planning on drilling here early in the first half of this next year. And we have a couple gold exploration projects in Red Lake that we're also advancing.
So there's a lot of news surrounding silver, specifically Deutsche Bank. Before even getting into that, we've seen the price of silver kind of fluctuate. It had over 100% rally since March. It's down 10%. People are talking about the Deutsche Bank story that's going on, but particularly a lot of people have seen kind of silver and gold as an alternative to the dollar. How do you why is this such an important aspect? Why do you think silver is something that people should focus on more than, let's just say, gold or Bitcoin or other assets?
Well, you just talked about the dollar there. Up until, I guess, this afternoon, the dollar was really weakening. This past week, I think it hit 2.5-year low. So that should be a perfect environment for all types of commodities. You got the rapid increase in government spending, exploding deficits that were already bad before COVID. And then now with all this news flow out of DC, all the COVID news has kind of took a back seat, and they have just nobody has a handle on the COVID yet. It's blowing up in Canada and in the States. I think they broke another record for 4,000 deaths in just the one day. So who knows what's going to come with that?
Well, obviously we have more lockdowns, we have more restrictions, but also most importantly, financially, we have a huge reckoning coming where there's going to be a lot of people affected, because if we look at the larger economic trends, they're not immediate. They usually take a couple cycles to kind of cycle through. They usually take a while to kind of reach its full effect on everybody that's sitting there with their businesses waiting to open, as of course they're getting the bad news. Well, no, we're going to have another 2 weeks and another 2 weeks and another 2 weeks. All of this while, of course, we have absolutely reckless spending, with Joe Biden promising that the way to fix all of this is to spend more. He just announced a couple days ago his top economic team. There's a lot of big banksters on there. There's a lot of individuals that some people are pointing to the responsibility for larger wealth income inequality that's happening there. So I don't think the plan for Biden, especially when it comes to spending more, is going to help anyone at all. So how do you see things kind of moving forward, especially for the global economy and especially for alternatives to the dollar like silver?
Well, for Biden specifically there, I think this afternoon he said he's going to put out his economic relief plans this coming Thursday, and it's going to be in the trillions. So again, what's that? What you mentioned the U.S. debt at, what is it, 27 trillion right now? What's
27.7, and it's coming very closely to 28 trillion.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. So if he spends any more money, you're gonna get close to $30 trillion there. That's tough to even fathom.
Yeah. How do you balance a balance sheet when you're $30 trillion in the hole? I mean, it just absolutely makes no sense at all. How do you navigate as a business in this kind of landscape where you have out of control government spending, huge debt? What are your personal plans for your business moving forward in this kind of crazy turbulent time?
Well, some of the big stuff you can't really control, like the COVID restrictions. We were fortunate for Silver Dollar with all the flight restrictions, and when we were evaluating this property down in Mexico, we couldn't send anybody from up here down there. Just out of respect for the local community members, didn't want to have a bunch of strangers walking around shaking hands. So we were fortunate enough to find Mark Melfair for us, who has a lot of experience with Mexico and dealing with the community relations side and implementing work programs. He was a VP for Chesapeake, so he's the perfect guy for us to stick handle operations down there. So we were lucky with that. But regarding the overall market, we just day by day, we try to work hard and just take it day by day.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand. You can pretty much do anything in Mexico if you know the right person. I spent a lot of time in Mexico. I know a lot of business guys, and that was my next question. You kind of answered it a little bit. How is it operating in Canada, the United States, and Mexico? Because you're interconnected into all of these three kind of governments. How is it working under these kind of lockdowns, under these restrictions? Have you been implicated or impacted in any other way? And are there any kind of, things that you see coming forward that will also affect this in the future?
Well, you know what? I don't want to jinx it, but so far so good for us. I've been quite pleased how well we've done in this short a time frame within these restrictions. So I think the key thing is to find the right guy, as you said, to tackle that part of the job. And for us, we got lucky with Mark. He lives in Durango City. He's an hour and a half away car ride from the job site. So it's a big plus for us.
Yeah, Mexico definitely seems to be more and more promising, especially after some of the language coming out from the Mexican president, not only offering up Julian Assange asylum in Mexico, not only just coming out and saying big tech social media companies should not be censoring the president of the United States, but also coming out and declaring that lockdowns are pretty much tools of dictators. And overall, Mexico has by and large kind of been bypassed when it comes to these larger restrictions, these larger moves by government that restrict businesses from conducting business. And that's one of the things that really I'm keeping a close eye on, because it seems like the Mexican president is becoming more and more outspoken. And of course, he's also implementing policies that are having a way better effect than I would say, of course, in the United States. Now, being inside of the business, having your ear to the ground, what kind of trends are you seeing in this industry? And if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, what kind of milestones are you hoping for in the future?
Well, for us, our near-term catalysts, our guys, Tetra Tech, a well-known geological firm, did a lot of work, and we put together a compilation of all the historic work that's been done in this La Jolla project. So we're going to have an update to the market here in the next several weeks, highlighting the results of that compilation and coming up with our drill targets, which we're quite excited about.
Do you think this latest news, especially from Deutsche Bank, just announcing that they're going to have to pay $125 million to literally resolve U.S. bribery surrounding precious metals, do you think that's going to have an effect on the market in the long term, especially this kind of, these larger accusations of the manipulation of precious metals in the market?
Well, I'm sure there's lots of other guys out there doing the same thing. And then that same article, they talked about JP Morgan with almost $1 billion fine. I'm not sure if that had any impact or not, so it's tough to say.
Yeah. These are the people in charge of the larger financial systems. These are the people working with the U.S. Federal Reserve. These are the ones that are literally printing the money, clicking the zeros on the big printing machine at the Federal Reserve that are proven to be corrupted.
Yeah, it's not good.
And
it's not good.
one thing that that doesn't really breed a lot of faith in the industry, especially with them just saying, well, we're just going to print a whole bunch of more money. Since, of course, I like having people like you on, because, you're in a business that I personally believe in, that I personally use. The friend that I'm staying with right now, he just bought a bunch of silver just a couple of days ago because he understands that it's a store of value. It's something that you could, put in, that you could make into small denominations, specifically silver, that could become viable for either resource use or for potentially trading. There's other people also stocking up on bullets. There's some people stocking up on Bitcoin. But what kind of talking points or argument would you use specifically with someone saying, why should I invest in silver when I could just invest in Bitcoin, and then everything just hyperbolically skyrockets there?
Yeah, Bitcoin's a unique little beast here. It's doubled in the last month, and it's getting a lot of media coverage lately. But you had guys like Elon Musk there at Tesla saying he will look at putting a portion of the cash in his balance sheet into Bitcoin, and you got Square and PayPal buying up Bitcoin. And I think there's some supply-demand dynamics that are at work here. And I don't really know too much about Bitcoin, but I think there's only, 2% a year is a new supply coming online. So obviously the demand is outstripping that by a wide margin.
It's not like the Federal Reserve where you could just keep clicking zero and adding money. And again, people don't understand the larger impacts and ramifications of that. If you look at either a precious metal or even what a dollar would buy you a couple decades ago, compare it to what it buys you now, it's shocking. It's absolutely kind of terrifying. My advice is always, don't listen to me. I'm not an expert, but me personally, I think the best strategy for me is to diversify as much as I can, whether it's crypto, silver, gold, bullets, even a little bit of stonks, even a little bit of other kind of currencies internationally that are not backed by the dollar. I think diversifying is definitely something that I would personally recommend. How are you? Do you have any kind of own kind of perspective here? Do you have anything to add about what you are doing in this unpredictable landscape?
Well, personally, you can't go wrong with diversifying your asset classes, that's for sure. I look at my shareholdings in silver dollar as my kind of exposure to the price of silver, because that La Jolla project has 50 million ounces of just silver sitting in the ground. And as we get going here with our drill programs, we're hoping to prove up a lot more.
Yep, and that's going to be a lot more useful than, of course, kind of fiat notes that's become more and more abundantly available for everyone. Michael, is there anything else you think we should touch on? Anything? Yeah, go ahead.
You talked about the 27 trillion in debt, and that's all at record low interest rates, right? We haven't talked about interest rates. I think just the last few days, the 10-year Treasury finally clipped over at 1%. What happens if that goes to 3 or 4? How do they service? How does the government service that level of debt? I don't know. I don't know the numbers on that.
Yeah. And I think it's just fair to say, again, not a financial advisor, not an expert, that things aren't really looking that good. Is there anything else that you think we missed or we should talk about when it comes to the larger kind of financial system, when it comes to metals, when it comes to what people should know in this kind of larger business world that we're trying to navigate somehow?
Well, I don't know. There's the Bloomberg articles about the 18 trillion of global bonds that are negative yielding. 27% of the investment grade bonds are sub-zero. Like that's not right. I can't imagine any economic professors covering that in their lectures to their students or being in textbooks, economic textbooks. So there has to be some kind of unforeseen event that's going to come down the pipe here. And it could be a violent move in the broader markets, which should be good for gold and silver prices and probably Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, I think any alternatives to the mainline system. I don't know what they're doing in colleges right now. I mean, they might as well just bring out fiction books and just start reading about magical dragons and just all these like fantasies and mysteries, because when you look at the logic of what's happening right now, it's
there is no logic, right? There is no logic.
Yeah, they're not thinking, they're not even able to explain. They're just like, yeah, computer makes zero and we press button now and we make monies. Like, that's not how economies are supposed to work. No. That's not how they historically work. And essentially, this is kind of a big scam that's being perpetrated that's not only going to affect us, but also all the other world currencies that are also backed on the US dollar. So, Michael, man, I don't know. Things are that's sunny of an outlook, but people who are, usually prepared, people who are in the know, usually make moves that kind of benefit them as much as anyone can be benefited in times of turmoil. So I thank you for adding some of this kind of ear on the ground information, for sharing your side of the story. Is there anything else you specifically wanted to tell to our audience about this very specific issue?
No, but if you think if you're bullish on silver, I think Silver Dollar Resources is a great place to park some dough. We got exceptional exploration upside on La Jolla, and we provide some exposure to gold with our Red Lake projects. And we're aggressive. We're not scared to swing for the fences.
People want to find out more about you and your company. Where can they go to do that?
Yeah, easiest and best spot is to go to the website, www.silverdollarresources.com. It's at the main landing page. We'll have a button there for our presentation. You guys can take a quick look. It'll give you a nice snapshot of what we're trying to do. And if they still have questions, at the very end of that slideshow, I got my cell number on there. So if they have any questions, hey, be happy to talk to them. So just give me a shout.
I think you're going to get a lot of phone calls. Michael, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for supporting us. Really appreciate that. The link to everything you mentioned will be down in the description below. If you like Michael, if you like what he's doing, definitely go check him out. And most importantly, thank you so much for your time, for your attention, your clicks, because in this modern day and age, I would not be here if it wasn't for you. Thank you again so much for watching and sharing. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. Love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on We Power.